Okay, hello everyone. How are you doing? Thank you so much for coming. It's a weekend. I hope you have a good day. We'll get started very shortly. But meanwhile, if you all can type in the chat where are you guys joining from, that would be great. I would be excited to know. Don't feel afraid to, type in the chat. We will try to make this as interactive as we can. I'm currently based in the UK. Yanis, are you in the UK as well?
Yes, I'm in London doing internship in London.
That's great. And I'm at Oxford. Papatsara. Hey, nice to meet you. You're from Thailand. That's great. I'm Thai as well. DX, thank you. Spain. Okay, great to meet you. Carla. So I'm originally from Thailand. Yanis, where are you from?
I'm from Hong Kong originally.
That's great. And did you do your high school in Hong Kong as well?
Yes, so I come here for uni.
That's lovely. Adam, welcome. You're from Hong Kong. And if you guys could also type, what are you passionate about? I don't know. So we get a sense. And we will learn more about Yanis, what she's passionate about in very soon. For me, I have several interests. I'm interested in mental health. In fact, I'm doing a PhD in psychiatry right now at the University of Oxford. So a lot of my work revolves around neuroscience, about the brain, and about mental health. I'm also passionate about other things like some policy work, social impact, and education. So I think we can get started. Hey everyone, hi again. I'm Sapil. I'm a PhD student and Rhodes Scholar at the University of Oxford. It is my pleasure to invite our guest today, Yannis Mok. Yannis is a full-ride Jardine Scholar. She's reading psychology and linguistics at the University of Oxford. Yannis is also a RISE Fellow. For those who don't know what RISE is, so RISE was founded by, I think, in 2019 by Eric and Wendy Smith. And RISE was founded also in partnership with Rhodes Trust, which is the scholarship which I got. And the idea of RISE is to support promising young people and provide them with opportunities that allow them to work together to serve others over their lifetime. And the fun fact is that actually both Yanis and I go to the same college. So, in Oxford, we have like I think 30 to 40 colleges. So both Yanis and I, we are at Queen's College. And the funny part of all of this is that actually both Yanis and I were connected by a senior Rhodes Scholar alum. His name is Ron, and I happened to meet him in Ottawa, which was where I was studying in Canada. So I did my undergraduate at University of Toronto. I happened to meet the senior Rhodes Scholar alum, who is a lawyer, and we had a nice chat about life. And then I told him, like, oh, I'm studying at Queen's, so I will be pursuing my DPhil at Queen's. And Ron was like, hey, I know someone, her name is Yanis, and she's very nice. You should go talk to her. And then, and then I actually happened to meet Yanis in one of the Rhodes events. So basically, we were connected by a senior Rhodes Scholar alum. And then since then, I've been talking to Yanis about her work. And so that's why I'm so excited to bring Yanis today, and we can have a chat about how can one transform your passion, which is something you like, into an impactful idea. Great. I don't want it to be like a very formal presentation. I created this short diagram to show you like a journey that I think a typical idea would go, right? Like, let's say I'm passionate about something and I have some kind of daily life experience that I face every single day, or some kind of experience that my community face every single day. That will normally kind of give you a unique insight into some problem that no one else can see, right? And also that passion of yours will often make you motivated to solve this meaningful problem. So as you can see, what you like, which is what you're passionate about, combined with your lived experience, which is what you face in your daily life, would allow you to find a meaningful problem. And once you find a meaningful problem, you often go through this kind of iterative process of, trying to really figure out this problem again, but like do research about it and also try to think of how to actually execute a meaningful solution to a meaningful problem. And then once you kind of do your plan and research, you actually execute the plan. And here I call it action, but you can call it anything. And so research, action, and once you actually execute a project, you kind of try to find a way to get feedback on your project. And depending on the type of project you're doing, you can decide how to measure these kind of feedback. And then it's an iterative process which allows you to find a meaningful solution to your problem. Okay? Without further ado, I want to talk about what Yanis is doing, and I would let Yanis go over it. Yanis, so you have sent me this photo. Can you very concisely explain what this photo is about, and in particular, what problem are you trying to tackle, and what solution did you come up with it? Go ahead.
Yes. So this is the first impact project that I kind of work on. So I'm trying to use the improve the balance of older adults so that it could prevent fall. And this is a smart shoe insole that older adults can wear it under their feet, and then they would like move their balance to control. You see the basket to catch the fruit. So it's a fun way to train their balance.
Right. So what is this again? This thing
It's
here.
mushroom insole for them to wear under their foot.
I see. And you're targeting an elderly population, right?
Yes, yes.
And can you repeat again, what kind of problem are they facing with, is it their balance, you said?
Yeah, so men often maybe their balance is not good so that they would fall, and this could have a very severe impact on their quality of life. For example, they may take a long time to recover, and then during that time maybe they cannot like do activities, they cannot go out, they cannot visit their friends. So then that's kind of like have a like a building up with like a more severe impact. So that's why I hope that to prevent like the fall, like the trigger, like
Hmm?
at first to like address this.
And my another question is, so I know you have addressed this, but just to clarify, so what is this? Is this kind of like a game?
Yes, this is a mobile game.
So do they actually, I'm trying to picture here. So they're playing a game and
Yes, yes.
so they
Yeah,
have a
so
mobile on in
yeah,
front.
they will hold a mobile phone and then play the game.
I see. And what exactly is this shoe doing here? It's like how is it
So it
linked to?
sense where you're placing your balance as there are pressure sensors on the shoes.
That's very cool. And this project, is this submitted as a part of the Rice Fellow, right?
Yeah, so that was my RISE project.
That's great. So that's awesome. And when did you do this again?
So
When
there
did you
was
start?
when I was in my secondary school. So I was like maybe 16. Yeah, so that was one of like my earlier social impact project that I tried to do.
That's very cool. That sounds very exciting. And we'll go over it through different sets of questions to ask you how did you even come up with this idea and how did you implement and execute this plan? That's very exciting. Let's go to another project that you did. Can you explain what this picture is about? What's the problem? And how did you find a solution to this problem that you're trying to tackle?
Yeah, so in Hong Kong, this is a project for the local community in Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong and many places in the world, there is an aging population. And then in this aging population, dementia is could be quite a common issues. Um, but at the same time, dementia could be prevented by like regular cognitive exercises that keep the brain active. So this is a board game that aims to let seniors to like think about problems, like stay active and improve their cognitive health and also promote their social well-being. So the theme of the board game is tea, Chinese tea, like tea that you can drink, as that's a very important part of the local culture. And many older adults in Hong Kong are really passionate and interested about this. And also Cantonese opera, as there's also another topic that many elderlies would be interested in. So in this game, they would do tasks about like tea and Cantonese opera, and this task have elements of reality-oriented therapy. So that's like one of the therapy that aims to improve the cognitive health, for example, is by like encouraging seniors to recall like what they're doing, like who they're with, the time, the date, and also another element, the therapeutic element in this game is the reminiscence therapy. So elderly, they're thinking about like, oh, what happened in the past, like what happened in their childhood. So that's kind of like a way of like thinking about the long-term memory to like improve their cognitive health. And also the social element is also really important. As you see, it's like played by a big group of elderly together. So then that kind of like encourage social interaction, which definitely beneficial for their well-being and mental health.
So just to recap, so again, you're born and raised in Hong Kong, right? And so
Yes,
the
yes,
community that you're trying to help, are they Hong Kong elderly community? Is that
yes,
right?
yes.
And
Yeah.
okay, so that's the population that you're trying to tackle. And can you say in one sentence, what are the problems that these elderly community are facing?
Like their cognitive mostly declining, like cognitive health and also maybe loneliness as that often maybe
Right.
they never know. So like yeah.
So you're essentially trying to help a Hong Kong elderly community to kind of be happier, I guess, and have better well-being and cognitive health. Did I phrase it
Yes,
correctly?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And the solution that you have was this game that you created. And this game, you try to make it such that it's culturally relevant and kind of
Yes,
like
yes.
relevant to the elderly's, the community's lived experience kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
Did I
exactly.
capture that right?
Exactly.
That's great. And the reason why I'm trying to unpack is because slowly, bit by bit, we are gonna kind of slowly unpack as to what this initiative is about. But we just keep those questions in mind for the audience. Okay, and this is the third project that we will be covering today. So can you again explain very concisely what problem were you trying to tackle and why did you, I can see YouTube here, so what was your solution for it?
Yeah, so the target audience is also the local community in Hong Kong. So the problems that I'm trying to tackle is the intergenerational gap. So maybe let's say older people maybe they're less familiar with say technology or like the what the younger adults like getting on with, and maybe we the younger adults may also sometimes like not that familiar with like their traditional culture, so that's the intergenerational gap. And also more generally like maybe the lack of health information or like technology content tailored to older adults. So those are the problems that I'm trying to address with this YouTube channel. So what this YouTube channel does is that so we post videos about like how to use technology, say how do you use Facebook, how do you use WhatsApp. We post videos about healthcare, say like some exercises that may be helpful for older adults. We post information about traditions and culture, like Tai Chi, so that's like a traditional body movement in China, and also like about the board game, which is like about Cantonese opera. That's also traditional culture. So we're trying to disseminate this information that older adults may find helpful to like learn about say technology and also their health, while younger people can also learn about like the traditional culture through these videos or while making these videos. And so we try to encourage like maybe the carers of older adults, they could play these videos to the elderly so they could like engage with this YouTube platform.
That's great. Excellent. So the problem we're trying to tackle is, if I'm correct,
Intergenerational
the
gap.
intergenerational gap. But can you help me unpack of like how are you framing this as an intergenerational gap, right? So is it because the elderly community, they kind of have to keep up with the current trends that the young people are doing? And what is it for the young people that needs to understand what the lived experience of the elderly community is? So I want to really understand what this intergenerational gap is about.
Yes, yes. I think it goes both way. Like it's about like understanding both sides, not just me trying to understand you or you trying to understanding me. So for example, like maybe older adults, maybe many of let's say the grandchildren, they will be using WhatsApp to try to like communicate. So for example, I try to call my grandparents with WhatsApp call, but I found that oh actually they're not too sure about how to use it. So then that could become like a communication gap of like how do you actually like stay in touch? So that's why we come up with the ideas of like teaching them to use social media that could potentially like bridge the gap. So that's a technology side. And at the same time, younger adults maybe like if they could have a deeper understanding of the traditional culture, the cultural background, like the societal background that their grandparents grew up in, so that they could have like more understanding or like more empathy towards like their life and also maybe more common topics to talk about. So that's also like bridging the intergenerational gap. So
Thank you for those examples. I really like the WhatsApp example. I think it's a very clear thing, right? Of how solving intergenerational gap can be very useful. So these are the three projects that Yanis will be revolving around when she's answering the questions. So I hope you guys have a sense of what she's up to. And as always, you're also welcome to type the questions in the chat. Yanis and I will occasionally look at the chat and we will be happy to answer any questions along the way. So like I said, so first it's important to, to really reflect on what you find fun doing. And the second thing is, and as you might notice through the questions I've asked Yanis, is that you try to combine what you like doing with your current lived experience. Why? Because the passion, the lived experience allow you to be motivated to do whatever project you propose to do. And also your lived experience actually allows you to gain a unique insight into the problem that maybe other people might not have as much as a good insight as you. So, some questions to ask when you're thinking about passion. What do you enjoy doing for fun? What skills do I want to learn? What subjects do I like? What activities have done in the past? Or what news am I interested in? So, for example, let's say I don't know. What do I enjoy doing for fun? So for me, it could be I like talking to friends. I like meeting new people. And that could be, what do you enjoy doing for fun? What skills do I want to learn? Let's say an example, maybe back in high school was like, I want to learn how to organize an event, an in-person event, right? And I have never done that kind of thing before, but I sort of have hosted some activities in my classroom, but I want to do something a bit bigger. So that's the skill I want to learn. And let's say, what subjects do I like? So I know, for instance, Yana, she's doing psychology and linguistics. So that could be like the subjects that you like. I like neuroscience and mental health. And if you see, a lot of stuff I do kind of revolves around neuroscience, psychology, and mental health. And perhaps the project that Yanis is doing also kind of revolve around psychology, education, and the subjects that she's passionate about, right? And what news am I interested in? Now, I put news because, but news can be anything. It can be like YouTube videos or any kind of content really in social media. But the point of news is that when we read news, we are often drawn to a certain type of news article of content, right? Some people might be very interested in social media trends that are going on. And I think that resonated with a lot of people. Or some people might be more interested in advocacy work. Or for instance, I was interested in any neuroscience related news. Like when I was in high school, I would try to subscribe to neuroscience news or just because I wanted to learn more about the brain, about cognition and about neurodegenerative disorders. That was my interest back in high school. And so if I were to do anything, it's probably revolved around the things that I'm interested with. And so that's passion. Passion is what you kind of like doing anyways. Lived experience is something that you experience every day. Why I really emphasize lived experience is because you might be like, oh my God, there's a lot of people doing the ideas that I want to do. But that's not really true, right? The problems exist. But the key part here is that the problem that you want to come up with should be tailored to a certain group of people, should be tailored to a certain context. And that's why, even though there's a similar societal issue like climate change, poverty, homelessness, or misinformation, or helping elderly community, these are very common problems. But if you see what Yanis did, she took her own lived experience and she kind of used her lived experience. She used the community's lived experience, the elderly community's lived experience, and then she tried to find a solution that kind of fit both Yanis and the elderly community's lived experience. So you see, even though the problem we are tackling is the same, which is helping elderly communities, like elderly communities' well-being, but her solution is very unique to that particular community that she's facing. So you see, so to just summarize, is sometimes the problems are similar, but the gap that you're tackling is tailored to your community. And that's why lived experience is very important. So just to think about, your background, your culture, your daily life. Also think about your community's background, your community's culture, and your community's way of living. Or sometimes it could be worth thinking about the challenges that you or someone you know face. It could be some experience that gives you that sense of urgency, like I think this has to change and it should be done right now. Or sometimes there are certain kind of issues where certain representation or voices are missing from the conversation about this issue. So now with that in mind, I want to now put the question back to Yanis, right? For either one or all of the project, you have done very impactful work. I wanted to know like what makes you very motivated to do some of the projects that you have kindly shared with us today.
Yeah, so I think lived experience is definitely such a important factor. Not to say that I have the lived experience of being old. I haven't got that, but I guess like my close relationship with like my grandparents or like some of my aunties who are older now, that's really informed and motivated me to work on the project. So when I was young, my grandma used to take care of me, so I had a really close relationship with her. But after she suffered from a stroke, so she could not talk or walk anymore. So that was quite sad to witness the change, and that was one of the experience that kind of like make me have the sense of urgency that I really want to like help or like help older people who may be facing similar issues like my grandma. Um, and so well, with that in mind, I really want to try to like maybe find ways to like encourage older adults, even though maybe they're like maybe even though they may face mobility issues, they could still stay active and like have some fun ways, like fun games to play with to stay active. So that's part of the reason that I work on the smart shoe insole that elderly people can just like stay at home and then like wear it and like do some balance exercise that could potentially be beneficial. And I also really enjoy playing games with my grandma. Like even though after she suffered from a stroke, so we still play games together. And she also enjoyed playing like some simple board games, and that was like a way for me to like stay in touch with her and like enjoy fun time together. So that's like also inspired me to like make board games for older adults. Um,
Yeah, so I see. So it seems like you find it fun to think about games, and you also find it fun to kind of play games with your family members. And sometimes passion and lived experience kind of intersect, right? And then you have witnessed some of the challenges that your family members face and the challenges that the elderly community face who are close to you. But essentially, what you kind of did was you now were like, maybe other people also probably face very similar kind of challenge. And that kind of gave you that sense of urgency, like, oh my God, I think I need to solve this issue. And thank you for that. That is very cool. And what about your YouTube project? Did you like social media or something, and that's how you pursued a YouTube project? What was going on?
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely do like social medias and also like my experience of like trying to teach my grandparents to use social media and finding that they might struggle a bit and like some videos would be helpful. So that definitely like part of the reason why I make the YouTube channel. And when I started the YouTube channel was also during the pandemic. So many older adults and like young people we could not get out. We have to, like facing lockdown, we just stay at home. So there's like much less chance to see like relatives like face to face. So I guess like that's also part of like me why I would want to try to use social media as a way for them to still stay connected over the pandemic. So I tried to start this YouTube channel. It was also like so I was like at home, I couldn't really go out, and YouTube channel is like a good way to like still make that impact while like in the pandemic.
That's great. So I can see now how your passion and your lived experience sort of allow you to identify problems that are relevant to your community and technically solutions too, which we'll go over that in a bit. So, like I said, passion, lived experience allow you to kind of get the motivation to do it. And Yanis, was that for you? Like because you're doing things that you're passionate about, did it help you build that fire, I guess, to kind of pursue the project and be resilient with it?
Yeah, I think definitely because I'm sure everyone knows like being a student is really, really busy. If you're not like really passionate or motivated about like the issues that you're working on, like why would you still be doing that? So I feel like yeah, passion is definitely like really, really important. And also certainly there would be like difficulties, right? So for example, like the YouTube channel, we started out like relatively unknown and we was thinking about maybe when the pandemic get better, we could like just do in-person like courses to teach the older adults, but turned out it was a very long time, so that didn't really happen, and that was kind of like a difficulties that we face as well. But then if you're really passionate and really want to like have the drive to like make this happen, then like you would like be more motivated to solve that. So I was trying to reach out to like other elderly organizations serving elderly, and then they help us to promote the YouTube channel on their Facebook. So then that kind of like help the YouTube channel to like gain more exposure. So I guess yeah, definitely the motivation and passion is really, really important.
That's very cool. And you kind of also said, like during the pandemic, you kind of have to shift the gears a little bit from in person to online, and which we'll talk about how sometimes you have to rethink or be flexible about your solution, even though you have find a meaningful problem. It's that's why it's important to have an iterative process. But anyways, let's move on. To reiterate, passion experience gives you unique insight, which allows you to identify a meaningful problem that's tailored to that community. But what do I mean by finding a meaningful problem? So in business or in startup actually, and I would recommend you watch, I think Y Combinator is, they have a very good YouTube videos on how to identify a valuable problem, but in terms of like entrepreneurship. But I think essentially creating a business startup and creating a social impact project, they revolve around a similar idea. Sometimes a lot of people, including me maybe, like we imagine some ideas that seems to be valuable, but actually is not, either because it doesn't help or it's because it's very hard to implement. So there are two things here. So let's read. So target idea is a concept, or it's a kind of idea that looks very promising on the surface, but it ends up sucking a lot of time, energy, and resources without leading to meaningful progress or impact. An example is I want to create an app that kind of end poverty, or I want to create some initiative that reduce homelessness in my country. That seems very promising. And you could be like, oh, I could design a lot of this and that. But eventually, if you come up with a lot of target ideas, you end up not being able to solve it. And a part of the reason is because that idea is not actionable. Sometimes it's too broad. Sometimes it requires a very complex solution because your ideas is overly ambitious or overly really broad. Or sometimes you have imagined the idea or you have created an imaginary problem that is not really a true problem in your community or in the community that you want to tackle. So that is why one of the steps to create an actionable idea is you have to narrow the scope, right? Like Yanis, how do you narrow the scope? So you probably were thinking of this, you want to help elderly community, but I guess the way you narrowed the scope was the specific problems that the elderly community was facing, and also you also focus the geographical locations, right? Because they kind of have that similar lived experience or similar culture that you understand. Would you like to expand a little bit on that? Like how you kind of narrow the scope? Or if you have a lot of ideas, how did you actually chose those three projects that you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess 2 points. First is you mentioned like local community. Yes, definitely. So I will also try to like like interact with the target audience like as much as I can and as soon as possible. So I volunteer for like elderly centers, and then through that like I can have like first-hand like experience of like how other elderlies in Hong Kong like what problems they're facing. So like, that gives like a much more like actionable idea of like about what to do, and also like more concrete picture of like challenges that they may be facing. So definitely like interact with like real users and put yourself into their shoes so that like you could like better understand that. And then the second point is like I think joining competition or like writing funding proposal could be really helpful because that kind of like force you to like pencil things down. And also usually like competitions or like funding opportunities, they have like kind of more like they have some concrete like criteria that you have to match, or like so that kind of like especially when you're starting out, maybe you yourself do not like when I was starting out, even now sometimes I don't have like some of like much very concrete ideas of like what may be the most feasible or what may be most addressing the social needs. But then if you try to like address that with like if you're trying to addressing some criteria in a competition or like in the funding committee, then like you kind of have to force you to think about those. So that could be really helpful. But of course, ultimately, like remember that those are just like means for you to like develop your ideas, and like ultimately not to be limited by those criteria as well. Because when you like have enough experience of like joining those competitions, you kind of then through that you get better ideas of like what might be worth doing, and then you definitely like come up with your own criteria and like own idea, not just like trying to get those funding or awards. But I feel like that could still be a good starting point.
Yes, I agree. Joining, any kind of activity, something that you need to write, something to apply for an activity, for a conference, a competition, a funding call, anything. And often they kind of have guidelines as to what they kind of want. And oftentimes, a lot of these funding calls, they have like strict criteria. Like it needs to be the scope, you need to be able to define the research question. The scope, you need to be able to show evidence that this problem is real. You need to justify why this is a problem. And oftentimes, having your lived experience or having a very clear understanding of your community's lived experience and your lived experience would really help in writing these things. And another thing is, I think it's important to focus on a small change, especially at the beginning phase. So let's say I want to tackle, like an example is, I don't know, let's say I want to tackle water pollution because I'm very interested in environmental science. I'm very interested in climate change. And you might be like, okay, water pollution, like what can I think of water pollution? So the first thing that comes to mind could be like, maybe there's a river, like actually where I live, there's like a river. And perhaps I saw like a lot of garbage, a lot of rubbish that were thrown on the side bank, river banks. And of course, I know this is inherently not good. And you could think of a several solution, right? So one could be, oh, maybe I want to raise some awareness campaign. So if you're thinking of raising awareness campaign, then what would the problem be? So the problem could be my community were not aware that throwing stuff on the riverbank is bad. Like then that would be a problem. So it's important to kind of, even if you try to think of solution first, you need to again link back to the problem. And the question is, do my community really do not know that throwing the rubbish is bad? And let's say you go and ask a few people. And I think it's very likely they might say, oh, actually, I know, like it's not good to pollute your water. So maybe raising awareness about the effects of water pollution might actually not be the best idea because that problem isn't what my community is facing. And then you try to think of another problem, right? You could be like, okay, after I asked a few of my neighbors, I asked my parents, it seems like everyone sort of knows that polluting the water is inherently bad. So let's try to come up with another problem. So it could be that, okay, in my lived experience, I can't find the trash cans anywhere near the river. So that's my lived experience, right? And this could be different for different communities. So you see now it's slowly moving away from that target idea and it's slowly become an actionable idea. And then I might be like, right, there's no trash cans. That's a problem. I'm going to a picnic near the river. I just don't know where to throw my trash. And it's possible, like, I could put it in my bag, but sometimes a lot of my food is really dirty. And maybe people are less inclined to, to be environmental conscious and they prefer to be more convenient and sometimes they just forget and they just leave it there. So then now a solution would be creating like actually like putting more trash cans. You see now I'm focusing on very small change. I'm focusing on this particular river, focusing on the problems that people face, which is the lack of trash cans. And now you try to find a solution, which we will go over it. But there are many ways to solve this trash can problem, right? And the last thing is, once you come up with a problem, you have to make it measurable, right? So how do you make a problem measurable? So let's say I want to, again, coming back to the water pollution problem, like a bad example of measuring this is going to the statistics of like, oh, there are 100,000 rubbish bags thrown in the river every year. That's not a good measure. Why? Because it doesn't tell you anything about the problem that you're really focusing, which is trash cans. And second thing, it also doesn't tell you about that river that you're trying to tackle, right? Because if in the end you want to start somewhere small, you want to start with cleaning the river beside your house, having an aggregate national statistics would not help. So it's better to actually find a way to maybe collect evidence or be like, oh, actually every day I went and kind of counted that there are around 50 plastic bags thrown every day. And then you can extrapolate. That means 1 week there are 350 plastic bags. So you see, this is much better than a very reliable government statistics, for instance. So that's how I would make it measurable. Okay. And Yanis, do you have anything to add about creating an actionable idea?
Not at the moment.
No, not really? Okay, that's great. So I hope that kind of give you a sense of what does it mean to really find a meaningful problem. So when you find a meaningful problem, you of course want to find an impactful solutions, right? And so before I go and explain my views as to how I think we could do this, and again, it's very flexible. You can do many things. And what I say might not be the best way for a certain situation, but hopefully you kind of get inspired with many ideas as to how you can find an impactful solution to your meaningful problem. So Yana, so how did you know that your work was really tackling the issue you were trying to solve? And were there some examples where the stuff you were doing actually weren't helping the problem that you initially thought you wanted to tackle?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess two examples. The first project, like the Smash Your Insole, that was kind of like a technology project. They have to use the mobile phone. There's a mobile game, and they have to wear some like device under their feet. So that was at first I really liked this idea, but then as I tried to scale it, so I built a prototype as you saw the pictures. But then as I tried to scale it and test it on like more real users, start to see there might be some problem. As many older adults, like they're less inclined to wear like a external devices, and then maybe also maybe they're less inclined to like technology and playing mobile games. I mean, of course, I want to try to raise the technology awareness, but then I feel like it's also important to like recognize this maybe some like their preferences and respect that. So then I kind of see that like, oh, there may be some issues with this idea. So then the next game that I was building, like the board game, it was a completely different approach. It was not a technology based, it was more of like group based, like a board game, because I realized that many elderly they would enjoy like talking with each other's face to face much more than playing mobile games at home. So then that's I kind of like shift their idea a bit. So that's like finding like is like evaluating and also like exploring different ideas. And then in terms of like measurable, like building on the earlier point about being measurable, that's something very important. That's something that I'm constantly trying to learn about and also explore as well. So when doing a board game, before like it's going to production. So now the board game has been produced with 100 sets. Before this production, we actually have tested on like over 100 older adults and asked them for feedback every time, so that like they're telling us like how they find it and if there is really addressing like is do they find it fun? Is it really addressing like giving them a good opportunity to interact with each others. And now we're also looking into doing more research into the effectiveness, like doing cognitive tests before and after a prolonged session of playing a board game. So that was like ways to also make it measurable as well.
That is very cool. And I really liked how, I assume you wanted to create some kind of technology because you're passionate about building some prototype, right?
Yes, yeah, I
The
was that.
shoe thing. But sometimes it's not solving the problem you want it to be. And then you realized, and again, that's why you anchor your problems in your lived experience and also the lived experience of other people, right? Or the lived experience of the users that you are or the community that you're trying to help. That those two are key. Because imagine if Yanis would have gone ahead and kept building this technology that maybe it doesn't resonate with a lot of elderly communities, at least in Hong Kong, or the population that Yanis was directly in contact with, it would have not been useful, right? So sometimes it's important to change ideas by, I'm sure, finding ways to get that feedback to, and when you get feedback, it doesn't have to be like a question ending, right? It could literally just be in asking the people, like, hey, I want to know like what you think about wearing something on your foot every day. And they might be like, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, then that's a good sign, right? And then you start going there and you're like, okay, is it because my product is bad? Or is it, I don't know, is it because they just don't like the idea of wearing something on their foot, which I assume, based on what you said, is the latter one. So again, it's an iterative process, and sometimes you just have to completely shift the ideas, but that's okay. And Yanis, how did you feel when you realized that idea that you kind of have to shift it to a different solution to tackle a similar problem that you were thinking? Like, did you feel sad, or I don't know, like, what were you thinking at the time?
Yeah, I guess a bit at first because I'm really passionate about technology and I enjoy programming, so that like I really want to try to use that to like help the target audience. But also the realization was like half like a gradual one as I gradually start to talk to more people. I gradually realize that, and I guess often how you like change the direction is also quite a gradual process. It's not like, oh, today I'm really excited about the idea, and the other day I found that it's not going to work. So like it's a like gradual process. So I guess that kind of like my mindset gradually shift, and as I like grew up and like see more like what they really want. I guess that was quite I kind of like realized that this is like the right thing to do. So yeah, maybe a bit sad at first, but ultimately, I feel like it was certainly like the right decision to make. And also I guess I also find other ways to use technology or my passion to contribute to older adults, like running a YouTube channel to teach them to use social media. That's also technology related. So I had to find other ways to fit in this passion. So yeah.
No, that's excellent. And I like the way you said that a lot of these transition between two ideas are often very gradual in the sense that you kind of see it. It's not like you're like, oh my God, I'm just gonna do a new thing, right? It's because, and the reason why that's possible, I think, is because all of the stuff you were doing was based on on what you're passionate about. It's based on your lived experience, like how you have witnessed the world, and also is based on how you try to empathize with the elderly community's lived experience. And over time, through this iterative process of like seeing the solution, getting feedback, and then again changing something new, you kind of realize over time, like, yeah, this seems like a natural way to move forward. That still aligns with your passion. Like you said, the YouTube channel, it was still to do with technology, just that the mode of execution, which is a YouTube channel, is different than before, which was building a prototype. But essentially, the problem you're tackling is very similar. So thank you for that. I really like that insight. Okay, as I have another question for you, which I kind of recall when we were talking in the dining hall. Did you say you, like before you came up with this project? So how did you actually get in touch with the elderly community? Now, I'm sure you said, it's your family member, but I recall you said you have volunteered at some places before. Is that right? Can you go a little bit of how volunteering in different places or joining different activities kind of inspired you to do what you're doing today?
Yes, definitely. So, I volunteer for elderly centers that have regular game sessions for older people to play games, and also a toy library for older adults like borrow games that they could play at home. So through this volunteering experience, I really see how like games could be an impactful way for older adults to like for the cognitive health, social well-being, and also volunteering allows me to build connection with partners. So for example, like the elderly centers that I collaborate with. I started as a volunteer for them, so then the social workers there they know me beforehand, so then it's become easier as you reach out to like ask them to like partner with you on programs as they already like know who you are. So that's certainly like a valuable way. And for volunteering I also get to meet like wonderful mentors. Like who teach me lots of things and also like give me guidance. So that's also like really valuable.
That's very cool. So it seems like the volunteering stuff that you did, it firstly allowed you to gain insights. So you volunteer at a charity that help with elderly communities, right? Is that
Yes.
correct? Yes.
Yes.
So of course, if you're volunteering in a charity that is very passionate about the cause that you're interested in, you will eventually learn something from that charity. It could be that you get a chance, you get a unique chance to interact with the elderly communities that you're helping through that charity. It could be that you get a mentor, you have mentors and resources who teach you, or maybe you're inspired by them to see, like, oh my God, this is how people have been helping this community that I'm very passionate about. And then over time, if you have volunteered in that place, and I can also vouch for that, that if I've worked with someone for a very long time and through them, I was inspired to do something for a problem that the organization I'm volunteering is also like the same thing, then it's very likely they would like to partner with you because you're gaining unique insights. You're coming with your new solution that's tackling a very similar problem of that organization you worked with. So I guess it's very likely that partnership would naturally be formed. And that might answer a lot of people's questions like, how do I get mentorship? How do I get some resources? And I think one of the ways is to just join many organizations, something that you're passionate about too. That's very important because the idea is when you do these activities, it could be competitions, it could be a volunteering role, it could be working at a non-profit or even at a business for-profit sector. It doesn't matter. As long as you're passionate about it, you try to learn what problem they were trying to tackle, what solutions did they come up with, how did they reiterate the ideas, and talk to the users, the end users of that project, and then think about your own lived experience, what you're passionate about. Then over time, you kind of get a new solution gradually. And then that means that you can now be in a very good position to actually do something new that's very valuable. And you see, it's now actionable, right? Because you have done many, many things and you have learned over time. And these ideas didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of through your extensive experience, through the skills you have learned over the time. And with that, then hopefully you can come up with a nice idea. And even then, it might not work, like what Yannis mentioned. So I think I want to go a little bit very quickly on the three steps, but I think by now we kind of get an intuition of what does it mean to turn from a meaningful problem to an impactful solution, right? So the first step to obviously do research or you explore. And now research in a traditional sense, you might be thinking, I have to read tons of papers. Yes, that is good. You can read a lot of empirical evidence. You can try to insert some stats, but research could also be something simpler than that, right? And actually, I don't think anything is simpler or anything. I think it's finding the right way to find the right evidence for your context. So an example could be you count how many trash cans are there in that river. That's actually research. That's exploring, right? Asking your community about problems about water pollution. And an example I gave was like, oh, do you guys know the implication of polluting the water? And then the result was you asked 10 people and all 10 of them said, yes, I know it's really bad for the fishes or for the aquatic environment. Then you're like, okay, then maybe that's not the problem. So you see, so that's what I mean by exploration. You have to ask people. Another way is kind of like field work. It could be like counting plastics on the riverbank. So that gives you some evidence like, look, there's a true problem here and I have a concrete evidence. Or another way is like, I could think like someone who's interested in advocacy or policy work. You try to think as to, for this particular policy or for this particular thing that's happening in the world, is there anything missing? But again, you should try to avoid thinking of like very grand picture. I mean, it's always good to place our problems into a bigger context, but it's often nice to start with something really small, right? Like something like your community, your town, your city, or this particular specific topics that you're very passionate about. So when you do that and you place within a bigger context, it kind of helps. Then the second step is obviously finding a better solutions. So if you take the trash can example, one example could be like, yeah, I'm going to buy trash cans and put it. But do you see the problem with that? You need money for it. So again, this action depends on your resources, your skills. So sometimes it's often good to think of a very cost-effective solution. So one way could be like applying to grants, applying to funding, but then you should be open-minded, right? Like sometimes maybe the idea of people not having suitable trash cans or like at a good location, that's a problem, but there could be a very unique solution to that. So an example could be like, I don't know, maybe just like let's say you know another problem, like there's a recycling issue. Everyone has boxes all the time, like I would imagine. And I know like I have a lot of recycling boxes because I recently moved out of my house. And maybe you can somehow try to leverage those two things. Like, oh my God, how do I collect these recycling boxes that people want to throw it for free? And maybe somehow put this instead of trash cans. Like, I don't know, maybe that might not be a suitable solution. You have to really think about it. But my point is, it's important to find a cost-effective solution. And I think being a good change maker is you do something that costs very little money in the first place, or finding the best, the most cost-effective way to implement your solutions, which would allow you to gain more funding in the future. And I think that's very important because oftentimes people have this very good idea, but they're like, oh, I need money. That means I have to wait for this and that and that and that. And then over time, your ideas never end up happening. So I would recommend trying to find a cost-effective solution. And the last thing is to try and find a way to get feedback. And as Yanis mentioned, you can talk to the elderly community. Maybe if you're doing like a very tech kind of thing, maybe there's a way, a metric to measure it. If you're doing YouTube, maybe I don't know, like views and stuff. But keep in mind, be very creative with how you get feedback, right? Like it's possible your YouTube views have, I don't know, 300 views, but maybe the right people are listening to your kind of video and it's actually impacting the community that you're looking at. So try to think of a very creative way to get different metrics, different feedback from the community, from the users, and so on. And yes, I think that's it for our talk, but I'm very happy to answer any questions. Meanwhile, Yanis, I have another question. So, what's your future plan? Like, I know you're doing a lot of this work, but like, what's your dream? Or I don't know.
That's the big question. I'm still thinking about it. But I feel like what I'm really thinking about is I guess at some point I really like research and I feel like at some point I do want to do research and maybe like do a PhD and like do research. But then before that I'm hoping to maybe get some like practical experience, like interacting with people that I want to serve, or I want to like learn more about. Like I'm still really passionate about like older adults and also I guess also psychology and mental health in general. So I'm thinking maybe I could like get some experience within the space first, like maybe being like a clinical psychologist for like older people. And then after I get some real experience, I hope those could actually inform my research questions and then maybe go into research. So that's what I'm thinking about. But I guess like there's still so many uncertainties. Maybe I would jump straight into research after my undergraduate. I really don't know, but that's just some thought that.
See, so we have a question. So, how did you learn how to code to create the prototype? So, I assume it's the question about actually building the product, right? So, how did you actually get, I don't know, mentorship resources? How do you learn the skills you need? Because I would assume creating something like that is not very easy. So, go ahead and let us know.
Yeah, so I feel like coding in general is the first thing is to like get the very, very basic ideas and then just the basic ideas, like the really basic one, like for loop, if else, function, like yeah, those are things. Like I mean, I'm not sure how technical the audience is. If you like, I could elaborate on those. But I feel like getting like the core ideas is the first step, and that's also important because then whatever languages and like frameworks you work with is all start with those ideas. And then, but don't spend too much time on like the theory. I feel like jumping into like actually doing things is also really, really important. So when you know the basic ideas, maybe that would just take you like a day to like learn, and then I would go straight into like actually coding. So there are like so many tutorials, YouTube that online that you could follow. And then when I was building a project, I just follow like um the tutorials that I could find online and try to work on that. And then after following the tutorials, then you also like could try to think about how do you like improve it so like it goes a step further than the tutorials. And then like Stack Overflow, documentations, those are all like really helpful tools. And nowadays don't also forget like ChatGPT and like many other generative AI that they're quite good at coding as well. So if you have questions, like you could also like ask them. So I guess like once after you have the basic ideas, and there are like actually many tools that could help you to like build a prototype and achieve what you want to do.
Yes. And Sakina, you have the same question. That's great. And if you have any other questions related to that, you're happy to jump on the mic or type on the chat. And just a reminder, if you're a high school student, we have this wonderful Catalyst Scholars program where essentially you have a very promising idea, even if it's not complete, you apply and you will be assigned to different mentors, including myself and Yannis. So Yannis is a peer mentor, so she's an undergraduate. They will also be assigned to a senior mentor who's like a PhD student like me. And if you do really well, you will get a chance to apply to a grant from 250 to 500 Canadian dollars. And they're supported by our generous philanthropists and donors. And also, you'll get a chance to pitch your ideas to advisors. And our advisors are professors from sort of like different disciplines, from education to psychology to more AI, quantum computing, like anything you can think of. So I would suggest if you are a high school student, please apply. I'll type the links in the chat. Okay, so we have another question. What if I'm a bit scared to start because my idea is not good enough?
I think just try. So this doesn't sound very helpful, but then like I feel like you don't actually know if your idea is good enough unless you start. Like you have to test it out to get feedback to find out if it's good enough. Sometimes maybe you think that oh this is a very shitty idea, but then if you try it, people may say that oh that's actually good. And sometimes you think that your idea is like wonderful, but then when you try, you find out that it doesn't work. So yeah, I would say just try and then you will know.
Yes, and remember, in anything from business to nonprofits to some small initiative to large initiative, the execution itself is important. But what is also very, very important is that you find what you're passionate about. You try to understand everyone's diverse perspective, put it in a broader context, and just start it right away. And you will know it right away that your ideas don't work. And it's okay. Then you learn, right? Then that's why that feedback's important. You're like, okay, my idea is not working. Maybe I'm not really tackling a real problem. Let me go ask more people. Let me dig around in the literature a bit more. Or maybe there's some issues with the product. So, in fact, the idea cannot be measured on whether it's good or bad. It's more of like how well do you go through that process. And that is actually really important. I mean, look at Yannis, the shoe insole thing, right? It is a very good idea from the surface, but as she went through, it seems like that idea might not resonate with a lot of people. Now, would you call that a bad idea? No, I wouldn't call it a bad idea. It's a good idea at the time, but over time, when Yannis kind of like talked to more people and actually built a product, she just at least she took that what she learned and she did something even cooler, right? So again, just to answer your question, there's no such thing like good or bad idea. It's about that reiterative process. Antonia Hill, how do you go about comparator analysis?
I think you mean competitor analysis, right?
I guess the way I look at this question is how do you compare your project with other existing initiatives out there that are tackling very similar problems? So how would you?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. First, like I guess like my project were more in the like charity space earlier, so I do not necessarily have like the most understanding of like how would you actually do that in like a business sense and make sure your ideas stand out in like a business. But then like more in a charity sense, of course, like innovative ideas is still like really, really important that you want to do something that add value to like existing program and not just repeating what other people do. Um, so I did like try to do a bit of research into like what games existing there, what like existing interventions are there for older adults. So for example, when I realized oh maybe usually they're very like Western focused and like not necessarily held to like the local culture, that really motivated me to do something that is culturally relevant for my local communities and also making those games fun and socially interactive that could like encourage seniors to engage.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think like a lot of these ideas or a lot of these societal issues, it's actually a good thing that a lot of people are trying to solve that problem. It's a good thing because it means it's a valuable problem. Like if people are going about these important issues like education, like elderly communities, problems that elderly communities face, or maybe like literacy, like these are very, very important problems, and that a lot of people want to tackle. But oftentimes your problem becomes unique when you gain a unique insight, or you can somehow tackle a unique audience, right? And that's where I think comparator or competitive analysis comes in. And I think you use the word comparator because sometimes a lot of initiatives maybe are not at competition against each other. So an example could be Yanis created this game for the Hong Kong community, but it's very likely like we could see how they're doing in Thailand, which is where I'm from. Maybe it won't be a game, but maybe it's some kind of social activity that's relevant to the Thai culture, right? or maybe in Canada or in the United States, it'll be a different thing due to a difference in culture. So I think that's very good to do. If the problems you're tackling is very similar, but they're executed differently for different communities, one of the things you can do is now you look at how do I apply to this particular community. And you might be like, is this impact good? No, of course it's very good. It's helping people in your community that a generic solution wouldn't work. And that is the point of creating a social impact project. So I hope that helps. I think I face sometimes this problem as well, is that so you said you have gone to competitions and all, right? And is that where you partly got some resources or your mentors? Is that
Yes, yes.
the case? And my question is, when you go to these events, based on what I hear from a lot of students and my own experience as well, it's often quite challenging to just go up to someone and strike a conversation, which people call it networking. I want to know, like, in your perspective, how do you create a genuine connections with people when you meet, especially like a competition settings or some kind of activity and so on? So what do you think? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, I can totally see that like networking as they put it could sometimes be like quite awkward. So I guess like maybe two point like first like always trying to be like genuine, also like update people like regularly about what I'm doing, even though I may not be like asking for help. So like for example, when I get their contacts and then maybe like well, not to say that like not to say that like you keep in touch because you think that they could be potentially helpful, but then just genuinely like keep in touch as like maybe a friend or like as like just to like update people and like tell what project you're working on, and then so that gives them like a better idea and see that you're consistently like really interested or um like care about the social issue that you're doing. So then as they see like the consistent effort they're doing and they also hear from you like every now and then I guess like when you really do ask for help, they would be like more willing as they know that you it was been like they saw your journey and like it did also come across as that you're only contacting them because you have something to ask for them. So then that seems like more genuine. And then like and of course also you have to be like really genuine yourself and not just like just keeping in touch for the sake of like asking people for something. And the second point is also like having something to offer, not to be traditional, but like being the nurturing that reciprocal relationship. So always try to like maybe even like just say thank you because then that's still like people would like really appreciate that. And then of course if there are like more concrete way that you could also like give back to them or like the community around you, then that's like definitely also a really good way to build relationship with like your mentors and also the wider community. So um well for example like there is an educational psychologist that like I had like a very good relationship with, and he was really nice that he offered me like shadowing opportunities, and then I also try to like give back to like my old school and also like his students by like tutoring some students with special educational needs. So like that's a way to like also expand the impact and also like keep the contact alive and like building deepening that relationship.
Yes, I second what you said. I think it's very important that there's a reciprocal relationship. In my experience, is that a lot of people like to help, and they like to help when both the parties, so it could be me and another person, share very similar interests, right? And for instance, let's say I'm going to this event. Okay, so my first step is to go to someone who is not talking to anybody. I'm sure there will be plenty. And it's very hard to do, but just go and say, hey, my name is this. Ask a question about them. Like, what are you doing here? What got you here? I mean, oftentimes, like a lot of people, especially someone who's very experienced, they like sharing experience and they will start sharing, I'm so and so, I came this because I do this and that. And you can always ask, like, what do you do for a living? So you kind of get a sense of what they're passionate about. And I think it's important that you try to find a common link between you two. So let's say you find someone who's very interested in technology and are interested in using this technology to help people. And you know that I, like, if I'm talking to this person, I'm like, I actually have, I think, a unique insights into a specific problem that might help with the technology. And I also want to learn from this person about technology. So you see, now it's becoming a reciprocal relationship, right? I have a unique insight. So that's why I said lived experience and passion are very important. Because if you have that very unique insight, which if you keep thinking about it, you will get one eventually. And if you have this unique insight, you can now go up to people and you can share that unique insight. And you'll be like, look, I see this gap in education in Hong Kong because of my personal experience and because of what I have seen or because of like I've asked people in my community, and this is a real problem, and I want to learn how to use technology, and I'm willing to learn how to code. Can you guide me to some resources? And over time, that experienced person like, wow, this person is very passionate about helping using technology to help people that aligns with my interests. And so I want to keep in touch with this person. So I think that is kind of like a very, very nice way for both the parties to have a good relationship rather than just like networking for the sake of networking, right? So I hope that's a nice ending to this conversation. So it seems like nobody has any more questions. So thank you again, Yannis, for coming to this talk. If you're interested, you can now follow our Instagram and LinkedIn, where we'll post more talks. Yeah, that would be great. So thank you again, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Clematis Research Empowerment Hub, empowering research for everyone.